Greetings, humans. Welcome back to Sci-Fi Punks, where we talk all things sci-fi, movies, comics, books, video games. If it's sci-fi, I'm into it. And today I want to do my first book review on this here channel. I'm going to be reviewing the Expanse book series, the first 3 books. I think there are like 9 of them now. I just finished the 3rd book here, and so I feel like I want to give my 2 cents on the Expanse book series up to this point. I borrowed this book from former sci-fi punk Nathan, and I'm sorry, we were on vacation and there was a fly in our hotel room, so my girlfriend reached for this to hit the fly, not knowing that I borrowed it from you, Nathan, and she put a little nick in the book cover. And so I'm just going to buy you a new one. Sorry, bro. Most people are probably familiar with the Expanse TV show. I am not. I have not seen the show. I don't have a streaming service that offers it, and I don't care enough to check it out. So I don't know, one day I'll probably watch it. A lot of people for years have been recommending I check out the Expanse book series. They said that I would love it, and I've heard a lot of people talk about these books over the years, and I haven't heard anybody say anything bad about them ever. They seem to be just like unanimously loved by all who have read them. And so I was like, okay, I mean, I might as well check them out. I was hesitant though, I didn't check out these books at first because, first of all, they're all really long. They're all about 600 pages, and that intimidates me. I love reading, but I am a very slow reader. A 600-page book typically takes me like 3 months to get through, 4 sometimes, and I also don't like to give up on books. I try to finish them even if they suck. So sometimes I'll get trapped in a really long book that I don't like. And so I'm always a little squeamish about getting involved with anything around 600 pages. And I'm also, the Expanse series is about 9 books long now. Yeah, I'm always a little suspicious about these long-running series. Whenever it gets to be over 3 books, I'm always thinking to myself, why is it that long? How is there so much story to tell with this one idea? I just don't think there's too many concepts out there in sci-fi that you can't get across in just 3 books. Usually just 1 book, but sometimes, okay, the bigger ones, maybe 3, but 3 tops. Like, it's very rare when I feel like there's any science fiction concept that deserves to be padded out for 9 books or whatever. I avoided the Expanse series for that reason, even though everyone was recommending it to me. However, one day I found the second Expanse novel in one of those little free book libraries that you see on the side of the street. And typically, I always check these things out whenever I pass by them, but they typically almost never have sci-fi in them. They're always just full of romance novels and little children books or copies of the DVD Rush Hour 2 or something like that. But this time I actually found the second Expanse novel, and I was like, okay, cool. I might as well check out the series now. This is kind of like a sign, right? So yeah, the Game of Thrones of sci-fi. Is that true? Well, I don't know, because I've never read Game of Thrones, so I don't know if that's true. But it is, like, I can see why it's popular. But I do think it might be the contrarian in me, but I think it's a little overhyped. Just saying. But first I want to talk about the things I really liked about these 3 books. The thing I really like first and foremost is that this is a hard sci-fi series. It doesn't have any fantasy elements. It tries to be as realistic as it can. And by that, it's a space opera, but it's only set in our solar system because there's no light speed. Light speed doesn't exist. The authors obviously are realists. So yeah, light speed does not exist in this story. It's about the human race about 300 years from now, then they've colonized the whole solar system. And so it's a very grounded approach to a space opera. And basically, it's just about all the different factions in the solar system. You've got Earth, you've got Mars, and then you've got the Outer Planet Alliance, the rest of the planets, basically. And it's all of these different factions basically competing for resources, political subterfuge, and it's all that kind of stuff. The thing is, though, I've seen this setting before, and in one of my favorite books ever is, let me see if I got it here. The setting is very similar to one of my favorite books ever, 2312. I don't have it. I bought this off the internet. It didn't come with one of those book jackets, but yeah, 2312 by Kim Stanley Robinson. I absolutely love this book. It came out in 2012, and I read it basically when it came out, and I've read this book twice. I really love this book. And it's a similar setting to The Expanse. It's basically the human race has colonized the solar system. There's no faster than light travel or ridiculous aliens or anything. It's all basically just like the politics of the human race and the situations they find themselves in a colonized solar system. And I love that kind of thing. I think that is really cool and a really cool approach to a space opera. So The Expanse gets big points for its setting. I really do love the setting. The characters are fantastic. There are a lot of them, and that's good too because each book is really long, and so it makes sense for it to give you the perspective of many different characters, because there's just so many. There's too many to go over, but it mostly centers around Captain James Holden and the crew of his spaceship called the Rochinet or the Rochny or something. I really don't know how to pronounce the name, and I never bothered to look it up. So I'm just going to call it the Enterprise. So it's about James Holden and his crew of the Enterprise. And basically it centers on these characters, and they go around the solar system doing different things and interacting with different factions of the solar system. They're basically the jumping off point, but there's many other characters, many awesome characters, and that's something that the book does really, really well. Now, the author of this book, the name is James S. Corey, but I believe that's a pen name for two other guys. I'm not sure why they're doing that, but anyways, the writing of this book by these authors is one of the biggest pros and, for me, one of the biggest cons at the same time, because the writing, first of all, is very fun. It's very easy to read. It's very breezy. The books don't feel like they're 600 pages long each. They really do breeze along at a great pace. Everything is really snappy. Everything's just really well constructed. You can tell that these guys are professionals. But at the same time, these aren't books for stupid people. Like, it's not like mindless, stupid, hand-holdy sort of writing. It's good stuff. But it's also something I don't like about it is that it's very efficient. Like, you can tell that they're trying to write to a broad audience. The book is not particularly prosy. The writing is just very, it gets the job done. And for me, that's a good thing and a bad thing. In the book 2312 that I mentioned earlier, the thing that book does amazing is really it really immerses you in the settings of, like, you really feel like you're on Mercury when you're reading about the characters on Mercury. Like, Kim Stanley Robinson does an amazing job at just putting you there. And I don't really get that sense when I'm reading the Expanse novels. You don't really get any beautiful descriptions of any of these places. Like, they're going to Mars, they're going to the asteroid belt, and you don't really, the book tells you what things look like, but in a very sort of efficient way, and it doesn't really try to immerse you in the setting at all. And to me, that's to its detriment. I'm not the biggest, I don't really love super descriptive novels. Like, the Lord of the Rings books, like Tolkien style of like describing like the color of the rocks as they're walking past them and stuff like that. I'm not into that, but there's a balance somewhere between, getting too descriptive and being not descriptive enough, and I don't really feel like I'm ever immersed in where these characters are. But another thing that these books do that I find very irritating about the writing is they don't tell you what things look like, or they don't tell you they don't describe to you what a character looks like right away. In fact, for somebody like me, when I'm reading a book, I typically picture the imagery in my head almost like a movie. And if the book doesn't tell me what a character looks like specifically right away, then I'm going to make up my own image in my head. But then, like 200 pages later, the book will mention offhand that the character stroked his mustache or something. And then I'm thinking, well, fuck, in my head, he doesn't have a mustache. I didn't know he had a mustache. And now I'm all discombobulated because now I have to try to like rejigger the image of this character in my mind to have a mustache now. And I'm so annoyed by that. Just tell me what things look like, or never tell me anything about what they look like so I can make it up myself. Another thing about this book, so I want to talk about when it comes to any science fiction story like The Expanse or anything else, I really want to zero in on what kind of concept they have. And the concept of the Expanse novels is basically, the premise basically is there's this thing called the proto-molecule, which is this ancient alien life form that was supposed to, this kind of amorphous goo that was supposed to go to Earth, and to primitive Earth like 1 billion years ago, and then merge with the biology of Earth and make something new. But it never made it to Earth. Instead, it got caught in Jupiter's gravity well. And then it stayed there until humans came and discovered it and then tried to harness it. And so nefarious actors in the solar system realized that this protomolecule could be a powerful weapon. And so there are evil actors out there that want to use it for bad things. And James Holden and his crew of the Enterprise try to stop the protomolecule from running amok and being used by evil people. That's essentially the premise of the first 3 novels, and I'm not going to get into major detail about what happens and stuff like that, but that's the basic concept. If you got this thing called the protomolecule. Now, is this a cool science fiction concept? I'm going to say not particularly. It doesn't blow my mind as an existential crisis for the human race. It's not bad. It does the job. It's cool and it creates good stakes, but it's not mind-blowing, especially in the first novel, because in the first novel, what the protomolecule essentially does is it turns people into zombies, and I'm over zombies. Like, I think everybody's over zombies. I know the book was written quite a while ago when, like, the whole zombie fatigue hadn't quite set in with everybody yet. But damn, like, did it ever set in? However, I feel like the authors got the memo, and by the time you get to the second book, there's no more zombies. The protomolecule is a different entity altogether. It does different things. It's much more interesting. So it's not just a zombie machine anymore. So that's good. But I still don't find the protomolecule to be particularly that interesting of a science fiction concept. Now, when you compare it to, like, the best comparison I can think of is in the video game series Mass Effect. You have this existential threat called the Reapers, and they're basically this race of super godlike Lovecraftian creatures that emerge from wherever they're hiding in the galaxy every 50,000 years, and their goal is to extinguish all intelligent civilization every 50,000 years to basically put the reset on galactic civilization. I think that's a really clear and interesting concept, but when you compare that to the protomolecule in the Expanse series, I just don't get the same sort of gravitas. It doesn't feel as threatening. And that's partially because I'm 3 books in now, and I still don't know anything about the protomolecule. The problem with this series is that my fears about a super long series dragging out a story seem to have been justified, because basically the authors are just spoon feeding you a little bit of information about the protomolecule as you go throughout the series in very little, like, piecemeal bites. And I find that very frustrating. In Mass Effect, you learn about the Reapers basically halfway through the first game. You learn everything that you need to know about the Reapers, and you understand the threat, and you understand what they're trying to do in the first game, and then they build off of that throughout the other 2 games. In the Expanse book series, I'm 3 books in now, and I still don't know basically anything about the protomolecule. You learn a little bit about it, but it's still pretty mysterious, and the book is really just trying to hook you on, just giving you more information slowly about what this thing is. And I just find that frustrating. I just think that it's a little lazy for that to be the reason why you've justified having such a long book series, to just give you little bits of information, because we see this all the time nowadays. Like, a lot of TV shows that are coming out on streaming services, especially like the Star Wars shows, they don't need to be whole TV shows. They could most of the time just be one movie. But what they've done is they've made a movie worth of plot, and then they've just stretched it out over 8 or 9 hours or whatever, just so that they have more content to put out. So those are my problems with the Expanse series, is that, the writing's not particularly immersive. The concept doesn't blow me away. And I don't really like how, I don't think that the story needs to be stretched out over so many books. So far, I haven't read anything that justifies why this is such a long series. Now, like I said, I'm only 3 books in. Maybe things are going to really expand out later on. I'm sure they will, if I decide to keep going. That said, I'm not bored at all. These books are really good, and part of me thinks that my criticism comes from my inner contrarian. I've always been a contrarian. When I was a kid, everyone was watching Power Rangers, so I was watching Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad. When everyone was into Pokemon, I was into Digimon. This is just how it's always been. I'm always a contrarian. And so if this Expanse series was more obscure and I had discovered it myself without all of the hype, I might be singing a completely different tune right now. But because it was so highly recommended to me, I'm going to come down on it hard. And I've also heard nobody say anything bad about it at all. So someone's got to do it. It's definitely a strong book series, and it's very professionally done, and I'm not bored at all. The characters are all wonderful, and I definitely think I'll keep going. Probably, I'm not in a rush to keep going, though. I'm not going to probably jump into the fourth book until like a year from now or something like that. Like, I don't really... The story doesn't have me so hooked that I just like have to keep going. But it's definitely good, and I definitely feel invested. So I'm going to see where it goes. So overall, yeah, like... So far, the first 3 Expanse novels, I think, are a solid affair. Good science fiction, but a little overrated. That's my take. Anyways, this has been the Sci-Fi Punks. All hail Megatron.